The Vancouver real estate market has been a roller coaster over the last few years. It's had its ups and downs when it comes to interest rates, inventory, sales, and pricing. But if you're thinking about buying or selling a property in the city of Vancouver, the big question is, what happens next? Most of the information and forecasts that you see online or even in the news can be very misleading. That's because it's based on the stats of the Greater Vancouver area, which is the totals and averages of all property types across 17 different cities. Relying on those numbers can be very costly. Not only could you end up overpaying as a buyer or leaving money on the table as a seller, but it could also cost you the opportunity to make your next move. That's why in this market report video, which is specific to the city of Vancouver, I'm going to break down what's actually happening with the condo, townhome, and detached home markets on the east side and the west side. I'll share where mortgage rates are expected to be this year, and I'll also point out the factors that will have the biggest impact on activity and prices and what this means for buyers and sellers as we move forward in 2025. Hey, what's up guys? Manny Graywell here with Oakwyn Realty. I help my clients successfully navigate through their buying and selling journeys while protecting their best interests and helping them make informed decisions. To understand where the market is heading in 2025, we need to take a look back at how it's responded to major changes over the past few years. I'll be going over the benchmark price, otherwise known as the HPI graph, for all property types across the city of Vancouver. Now remember, just as there are differences between the different cities across the Lower Mainland, there will also be differences not only between the property types in the city of Vancouver, but also differences between the neighborhoods across the city of Vancouver. Taking a look at the home price index graph for all property types across the city of Vancouver, you'll see that recklessly low interest rates from 2021 through the beginning of 2022 fueled activity and led to a 20% increase in prices. This was followed by one of the most aggressive rate hike cycles in history by the Bank of Canada, which led to a fall in activity and a 12% decline in prices over the remainder of 2022. Over the first half of 2023, we saw buyers return to the market because the Bank of Canada held the overnight rate steady during the spring and because prices had declined significantly over the second half of 2022. This return to activity, along with the inventory levels at that time, led to a 10% increase in prices over the first half of 2023. Then over the second half of 2023, the Bank of Canada decided to raise the overnight rate in June and July. This led to more uncertainty in the market, causing the 5-year fixed rates to climb up into the high sixes, the highest that they've been since 2008. This led to buyers retracting again and a price decline of 4% over the second half of 2023. In the beginning of 2024, the conditions were very similar to the beginning of 2023 in terms of inventory levels, 5-year fixed rate, and the overnight rate being held steady by the Bank of Canada. This led to an increase in prices by 4% due to a rise in activity again. But in the second half of 2024, there was a decline in prices. Even though the Bank of Canada was lowering the overnight rate, the reason for this was because inventory rose by 18% year over year, while sales only moved up by 3%. Despite one of the most aggressive rate hike cycles in history, and despite the 5-year fixed rates being at some of the highest that we've seen in the last 2 decades, prices only declined by a smaller percentage during the downward cycles than they moved up by during the upward cycles over the last few years. In fact, there was a net price gain of 16% over the last 4 years. Although the higher 5-year fixed rates did have an impact on activity, many buyers are adjusting and accepting them when they're in the low 5 to the mid 5 range, as evidenced by the activity at the beginning of 2023 and 2024. The only time we saw a significant drop in activity was in the second half of 2022, when the Bank of Canada was raising the overnight rate aggressively, and the latter half of 2023, when we saw the 5-year fixed rate rise into the high sixes, a number that we haven't seen, as I mentioned, in over 2 decades. Now, what can't be seen on the graph that I just shared is a shift that has been underway for the past few months. This is a shift that I alluded to and predicted in my videos back in June and October of 2024. Remember when I mentioned that sales are up by 3% in 2024 compared to 2023? Well, let's take a closer look at those numbers. When we compare the first 9 months of 2024 to the first 9 months of 2023, sales are actually down in 2024 by approximately 3%. But when we compare the last 3 months of the year, sales are up by 32%. That's a significant jump. Yes, part of this difference is due to the fact that the end of 2023 was very sluggish, but another big reason for why sales have moved up significantly over the last 3 months in 2024 compared to the last 3 months of 2023 is because the 5-year fixed rate has dropped by almost 1%. compared to where it was in the beginning of 2024. This has led to a rise in affordability by approximately 5 to 7%. Personally, I've had more calls on my listings, more traffic at my opens, and even my buyer clients have been more active with viewing properties and writing offers. I've also been involved with a few multiple offers during this time. It's not like the market is on fire type of an environment, but it's definitely a lot more active. You're probably asking, will sales and activity continue to rise in 2025? Well, if sales have been on the rise due to a low 5-year fixed rate or a 5-year fixed rate that is very close to where it's going to settle, we can expect sales to continue to rise. In fact, why don't we take a look at one of the 5-year fixed rate mortgage forecasts? As you can see, the expectation is for the 5-year fixed rate to hover in the low 4% range. This is very close to where it currently sits. Now you're probably asking, if sales continue to rise, will we see upward pressure on pricing? Well, if rates continue to stay where they are, the other big factor that will influence prices is inventory. We've already seen how an 18% rise in the year-over-year inventory levels in the second half of 2024 not only alleviated the upward pressure on pricing, but it actually led to a small price decline. So where do the inventory levels currently sit for the condo, townhome, and detached home markets on the east side and the west side of Vancouver? Before I go over the inventory numbers for each of these 6 general markets, along with sharing how each of these markets have performed and how their prices have moved over 2024, I'd like to point out that just as there will be differences between each of these general markets, there will also be differences between the neighborhoods of each of these markets. Knowing this detailed information will be extremely important because it will help you determine the strategy that you need to use to increase your chances of success, whether that means buying your ideal property at the right price or selling and maximizing your sale price and moving forward with your plans. If you would like to get access to a personalized strategy and plan that is custom tailored to your timeline and your goals, click on the link below to schedule a complimentary strategy session. As a real estate agent in the City of Vancouver with over 16 years of experience, I've helped many buyers and sellers like yourself, saving them time, saving them money, and helping them take advantage of opportunities. Now, let's take a look at the inventory levels for each of the 6 general markets in the City of Vancouver, along with how they performed in 2024. 2 of the 6 markets were sellers markets, 3 were in a balanced state, and 1 was a buyer's market throughout 2024. Although all 6 markets moved up in price through the first half of the year, a majority of them fell in the second half, leaving prices relatively stable for 2024. Except for the townhome markets, which had a noticeable price appreciation when it comes to benchmark properties. Taking a look at the current inventory levels for the month of January at the time of this recording, the inventory levels are currently ahead of where they were in January of 2024. Except for when it comes to east side condos, the inventory numbers are very similar, almost exactly the same to where they were last year. Even though inventory numbers are up this year compared to the same time last year, they're not quite up by the same pace at which sales moved up towards the end of last year. Yes, the townhome markets are up by a similar pace, but as you can see from the condo markets, they need to rise by a larger number. And even though detached numbers are up as well, they also need to rise by a larger number. I will be monitoring this stat very closely, so if you would like to be kept up to date, hit the subscribe button or the follow button. So is now a good time to buy in the City of Vancouver? Generally speaking, yes. None of the markets are currently in a heated state, and the 5-year fixed rate is very close to where it's going to settle. But despite all of that, one thing to keep in mind is that in my 16 years of experience as a real estate agent in the City of Vancouver, I've noticed that most people buy or sell based on lifestyle and life stage changes. So it's not so much about timing the market as much as it's about knowing which strategy that you need to use and which tactics you need to use to increase your chances of success at the time that you're going to be in the market. For a personalized strategy that's custom tailored to your goals and your timeline, click on the link below to schedule a complimentary strategy session. Or if you prefer, you can call, text, DM, or email me. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to helping you on your home buying or your home selling journey.